2, 1.
Hi, good afternoon or evening. Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mariachi Muro. I'm the Director of Artistic Programs and Education at Self-Help Graphics and Art. Thank you for joining the Artist Lab in the Studio virtual series today. The program supports and promotes artists of color and seeks to maintain the creative community connected during the pandemic. Tonight's program is co-presented with Metro Art to celebrate the new public artwork by LA-based artist Sonia Romero, which is at Mariachi Plaza Station, I should say. And she'll be in conversation with artist, Self-Help Graphics board member, and Metro LA consultant Wayne Perry, who worked closely with Sonia to help bring this work onto the site. Before we continue, I want to acknowledge that Self-Help Graphics resides on Apechangna, currently known as Los Angeles neighborhood of Boyle Heights, where the original peoples of this territory, the Tongva, Chumash, and the Tataviam, were first displaced. I want to welcome you both. And so tonight, my role, I'm going to step back and allow you both to talk about this beautiful mural that I had a chance to peek at through photographs, but I hopefully will take a walk down to the plaza since I'm very close to you, since Self-Help Graphics building is so close to you. So Wayne, please take it away.
Hi everybody, I'm Wayne Perry. I'm just going to introduce Sonia very quickly, and then we'll start with having a conversation about the project. Sonia Romero is a Los Angeles-based artist known for her paper cut and printmaking aesthetics, which she incorporates into both her fine art and public art commissions. Born in 1980, she grew up in an artistic household in Echo Park before formally studying at the Rhode Island School of Design. Romero creates works that reflect the cultural diversity found in the communities of Los Angeles, exploring themes relating universal connection, humanity, as well as its relationship to the environment. Dynamic combination of printmaking, paper cutting, painting, and sculpture includes fine art pieces that have been showcased in many galleries and acquired by prominent institutions such as the Los Angeles County Museum of Art and the Smithsonian. Her distinctive paper cut shapes and patterns can be found in steel, tile, or paint in one of her many large-scale permanent installations such as Little Tokyo, the Artesia County Public Library, the MacArthur Park Station, and now the Mariachi Plaza Station. And so I was thinking about this as just very quickly before we get started on talking about the mural. I was thinking about when I actually met Sonia, which was a long time ago, back in 1996, and she was a teenager, and I would go to Frank Romero's studio. He'd have these holiday sales, and the studio at the time was, which Frank being her father, of course. The studio was like this hub of Chicano and Latinx art in Los Angeles, and you have names in Chicano art and muralism, and also their relation to printmaking, and all of these artists that I would encounter making at Self-Help Graphics. But you know, these were all like people that I idolized as an art student. It was John Valadez, Gronk, Eloy Torres, Magoo, you know, Richard Duardo, Patsy Valdez, and they were all there in the studio. And then I see, you know, young Sonia there, was a constant present, and to watch her develop over the years and become this, you know, very accomplished artist in her own right, it's been, you know, something to behold. And here we are, you know, coming to this point with this particular project, and I just happen to be, you know, working as a consultant with Metro's Public Art, and also, you know, all my work with Self tied together. And just on a small side note, I was actually born right there at White Memorial, right next to the station. So it all has a lot of, that's all I'm going to say about me. But just you know, appreciating the growth and accomplishments of Sonia as an artist. And so, you know, we'll start talking now about this particular project, which is a large mural on aluminum panel that's in the mezzanine level of the Mariachi Plaza Station. And so, Sonia, we'll start with just overall, what was your approach to this this project in particular?
Well, I heard about this project in 2015. I was called by Metro to apply for it, and I had just given birth to my first baby just like a few weeks before. But I was so excited. I said, I can't pass up this opportunity to do something in Mariachi Plaza. And so usually I'll have like a vision right away of what I want to do. Like once I see the space on the mezzanine level in the station is, it's dark, it's underground, it's large. And I knew I wanted immediately to brighten up the space with my mural. And I had this vision right away of hands, just like a pattern of hands, you know, like that's the vision, that's it, a pattern of hands. And then from there, I had to develop it into a proposal that I showed to a panel of judges at Metro and competed against other artists for. So the first thing I just did was I had a photo booth in Mariachi Plaza set up during the farmer's market on a Friday. And I ran around asking people if they would like to show their hand only, holding an object of significance that they felt represented themselves as residents of Boyle Heights or the neighborhood itself of Boyle Heights. And from that photo shoot of people holding objects of significance, I developed a proposal which I presented to Metro and won the commission.
And so also I know within the mural, there are a number of objects, and I know they're sort of symbolic of different things. And how did you come to decide which particular objects and symbols you were using in the mural? Also, I just want to go back. I know that you said that you had just given birth, and I just wanted to catch up and see how things have been going for you dealing with, you know, with COVID and these new ways of raising children and homeschooling and being a professional artist. How has that been for you?
Okay, well, yeah. So present moment, I've been in this studio, which is behind my house, in my house, you know, solidly since March with now have 2 children. I had another child in 2018. So we have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old right now with no childcare whatsoever, which has been different because before the pandemic, I had full-time childcare and I was working full-time. So now I only work 3 hours a day and I share the childcare responsibilities with my partner, Daniel. But we're doing good, you know, 3 hours a day is something, you know, you can get something done during that time. And we're safe and we're just here together in a bubble.
Yeah, I know this project was monumental and a long process, and you know, I commend you on being able to do all these things under these circumstances. And so now sort of back to the idea of the symbols that you had sort of curated for the mural itself. How did that come to be?
Let's show a picture of the mural so people know what we're talking about. The first picture I have is of the whole mural itself. Yeah. I actually finished the mural right before the pandemic hit. So I guess that was some luck. I painted it in my studio on panels. So here's the finished mural in the station. It's called Hecho a Mano. You know, to get to this station, you just go to Mariachi Plaza. And if you're going on foot, you go down the escalator. And yeah, I have more pictures to show you of the process and how I picked each of the objects and who modeled for me.
Also, just to note the scale of it, it's difficult to see in this photo, but the panels are gigantic, and you actually had them in your studio, and they are broken up into, I believe, 9 panels.
Yeah, let's show the next picture. Okay, so here the very first 2 panels that I worked on. I could only fit 2 panels at a time in my studio. That's where I am right now. Each panel is 12 feet high, and most of them were about, you know, 4, depending on, well, this is actually 3 panels because it had a weird little triangle on it, but they're about 4 feet wide. And there were 9 of them. So every time we switched the panels, I would have to have a whole crew of men come in because each panel weighed 300 pounds or so, or a lot of pounds. So like 4 to 7 men had to lift them and switch them out. So that was an undertaking. And it took me about a whole year to paint it. 1, because of all the switching out, and 2, because I was taking care of my second baby, who was just around 1 year old when I started this mural, when I started actually painting the mural. So so these were the first 3 panels. Yeah, here's another shot of those panels. These pictures are by Rafael Cardenas, who was so kind to come document the process. The idea for this.
Tell us a little bit about how difficult it was.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Oh, just tell us a little bit about how difficult it was just to get the panels into your studio. I mean,
Oh yeah,
it
it was like a crazy circus just to get the panels into the studio. Like I have French doors that they just perfectly fit through the door if on a diagonal, but just
they
like
had to remove the frame.
Yeah, with removing the frame. But they brought them in on a truck and they used a forklift, and then like it turned out that in the end just manually carrying them was like the best way to transport them. But yeah, that was a crazy. So this is acrylic paint on aluminum panel. Yeah, so this is a shot of
So I see that
another 2 of the panels later in the year.
Do you want to talk about the imagery a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to talk about the imagery a little bit, the butterflies and the specific objects?
Yeah. So like for the background of the mural, I wanted to do an oilcloth aesthetic. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with, you know, like oilcloth tablecloths that you see at restaurants or in your home. So that was kind of the design inspiration for the look. And I had these plexiglass monarch butterflies laser cut. Well, originally I paper cut them by hand, but then I had them made in plastic so that I could trace them on the mural like with some ease. So all of those butterflies on the mural that you see are hand painted. All the objects of significance that the models are holding are created in the paper cut style, which is literally just a piece of paper that I hand cut. Kind of hard to see, but these are the sneakers. The reason why I wanted to paper cut the objects, well, there's a few reasons, but one is just one of my mediums that I enjoy doing. But 2, I wanted the hands to be different than the objects. I wanted the hands to be painterly so that I could give a nod to Chicano muralists of the past. But I wanted the objects to be more graphic because that's more my style that I've been exploring the last 15 years or so. So I'll show you one more. They kind of get stuck together.
Yeah, your ability to do these paper cuts is really remarkable. And I know sometimes you incorporate them into your printmaking, which is also
Yeah,
very unusual.
this is the hat, the mariachi hat.
Can you get it closer so we can see some of the detail?
Okay, sure.
Because it is really exquisite and seems impossible to do with scissors. So you cut it all with scissors.
No, I just use an X-Acto.
That's what I meant. I know nothing.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
So how do you go from this conceptually?
How do I what?
How do you go from, you know, making these small cutouts to thinking about the scale? Because the scale of it is actually, it's very difficult to think about without being there. But when you put a mural up that high, this everything becomes really small. And so you're working
Yeah.
from very small to very large.
The mural itself is 10 feet off the ground. So the bottom of the mural that you see on the floor of my studio in this photo is 10 feet up. So I had to, when I was designing the whole concept, I had to imagine the scale. And when I finally got to see the mural installed after all of these years and all of the planning, I was really, really satisfied with my design, because in the studio, everything looks kind of large and cartoony, but like once you get it up there 10 feet off the ground, the illusion and the depth really comes into play. So but as a public artist, that's something that you really have to consider, is what it's going to look like outside in the air, on a busy street, or in like a huge station. So it's all about scale. So yeah, just experience and planning and like imagining. And then like you have to remember, like I never even saw the mural all together until it was done. So that was crazy.
Yeah, I don't think anybody had seen the whole thing until it was installed just a couple of weeks ago, and sort of came together and was sort of a surprise. But it's spectacular in person, and I hope everybody gets a chance to go down and look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go down and look at it. It's up now. It's free. Just walk in. It's public. If you guys go see it, take a picture, tag me so I can see you seeing it. That's the thing about being a public artist, is like you're never really there to see the public see your work. So I know people see it, but I don't always hear about it or hear people's reactions. I'm usually just working on the next project.
So do you want to talk a little bit about the people whose hands are in the photos, and the stories behind their individual objects that they brought?
Yeah, so these all these people that have been portrayed, their hands, are from the neighborhood, and or felt somehow connected to the neighborhood. The fedora here, I have the paper guy, I can show you. This is Pachuco Manny.
I don't think they can
Well, it's the hat that's in the picture right here.
see because it's in presentation mode.
Oh.
So they can see
fine.
Sonia.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. We'll go back to it after the slideshow, so they can see the cutouts, because you really should see them. They're pretty amazing.
Okay.
But you can talk about.
I wanted to include like a nod to Pachuco culture, because of the original movement in history, but also for all the generations of people that have taken it on, you know, in different decades. So I asked this guy Pachuco Manny to meet me. We met in the parking lot with his 33 Chevy, and he showed me some. I couldn't get the whole car in his hand, so I settled for his hat. That was pretty cool. The feather is that's Rosana Esparza Arens, that you might know from Self-Help Graphics. She's holding a feather, which is a snake eagle feather. And that was a really beautiful contribution. You can go to the next slide. Oh, this is a baby. This baby is this is my contribution personally. You remember in the beginning, I was telling you that my baby was about 6 weeks old when we did our first photo shoot. So I just kind of stuck her into the photo shoot. And I wanted to include her. Her name's Indigo because I felt like a baby was representative of like, everybody's children and how hard everybody works to make better lives for their children and their children's children. So she's representative of that. You can go on. The model for the protest sign is Mita Curon, and she was in the original East Los Angeles walkout in 1968. So I wanted to have her model the sign, and I looked at all of those like historical photos to get ideas for the wording that I wanted to put on the sign. And I also asked the Clover Signs to help me with the lettering because I'm not really good at like sign painting. So she helped me with that. And then I translated that into a paper cut, and then I translated the paper cut into the painting. That's my crazy process. This is Ophelia Esparza's hands. You guys might have heard of her because
It's Sonia. I'm sorry. I have a question from the audience. Going back to your paper cutouts, how big are they? Because they look a feet big instead of inches.
You mean like how big are the paper cuts, or how big
your paper cutouts, the ones right behind you?
I don't think they can see because we're in presentation mode. I think you may have to switch out so they can actually see them.
Okay.
They're the size of like, a piece of paper, a large piece of paper. I use cardstock, black cardstock. I draw on the back of the cardstock with a white pencil to create my drawing, and then I cut it out and use the other side.
And then at the end, when we stop sharing, they would love when we stop presenting the PowerPoint, they would love to see your stencils.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good. I think it's something that they need to see.
Ophelia here is holding Day of the Dead offerings, paper flowers, and a little devil skeleton, marigolds. This one, this is the mariachi hat, and this is quite large, in the mural itself. It's like 9 feet tall. That's the biggest object that I did. But, obviously this is Mariachi Plaza, so it was important to me to represent that. And, I have also 2 instruments that were being held by musicians in the plaza during my photo shoot in the mural. This is a challah bread. There was a large Jewish community in Boyle Heights history that I wanted to nod to. I actually got this bread from Cantor's Bakery on Fairfax because I chose to buy it from there because the original Cantor's was in Boyle Heights back in the day. And I also learned that there was a bakers union in the area in the 1920s that was a strong political force. So for those reasons, I depicted a challah bread. This is the other side of the mural. So the mural has 2 sides with the elevator shaft of the station in the middle. You can see some of the objects I chose on this side of the mural. The big guitar, the big mariachi guitar. You can go to the next one. corn. This was like a really fun paper cut to make. I chose this because, well, one boy from the farmer's market modeled it for me during our photo shoot, but I felt like it was representative of so much of Mexican-American cuisine, and also spiritually and culturally significant. So it covered a lot of ground. Like each object that I chose had to cover a lot of ground to I sort of curated them to create a narrative about Boyle Heights. Go ahead. This model was from a group called the Old Timers. She brought in her photos of her family. I did replace a couple of the photos with some of my family photos. So the top photo is my grandparents, Edward and Delia Romero. They lived in Boyle Heights on Lanfranco, and they had their family there. The three boys on the right bottom, those are their kids. So Frank Romero at the bottom, and my uncles Jerry and Richard Romero. And the third picture is one of the original pictures that the model brought in. This model brought in a newspaper, Boyle Heights Beat. He was a writer who was just about to start his college career, and he felt like passionate about this object and that it, showed freedom of speech and the power of writing. And I chose to put in the old 6th Street Bridge as part of the news. I chose all the news items myself. I'll have a thing for hamburgers. I don't know. I always put hamburgers.
I always wondered.
I always put hamburgers and everything, and Sacred Hearts and little suns. Those are all kind of Sonia things. Go ahead. These sneakers were modeled by a member of the Boyle Heights Bridge Runners, which is like a really cool community running group that comes together to run and be create community and positive vibes. So I wanted to include them. This slide this object comes from the Japanese American community that was, really prevalent in Boyle Heights, especially before World War II. To learn about that community, I did some research in Little Tokyo, which is, really close by. And the model for this is one of the shop owners there, and this is one of the teapots in her shop. But I chose the teapot because I felt like it was a representative of Japanese American home life and was a recognizable object. One more. The scissors, or maybe I don't have a picture of the scissors. The sewing shears that you see on the bottom of this picture, they have a really interesting story as well. I was invited to Maria's house to see these objects. Her grandmother was originally a seamstress and she used the sewing shears as well as her sewing machine to create a living and buy the home that her granddaughter now lives in. And so I wanted to include a tool somewhere in the mural to show like work. And so that's a tool that I ended up choosing, these sewing shears from the past, historical.
I think we ended the slideshow.
Yeah, that's the end of the slides. Mm-hmm.
So did you want to go back and talk about, we'll start with just the details in your paper cuts. I think it's important for them to, something you would typically associate with murals, and definitely not with printmaking, but you've managed to incorporate them, and so they're remarkable and unique. But the paper cutting, I mean, just from my experience and opinion, it's like really exquisite and intricate, and let's have a look.
Yeah.
I think they wanted to see scale too, to see the process. Like the scale that you work in. The other thing about the mural is just that the matter of the scale. That was a huge accomplishment to make, to have the presence, but also the hands are like remarkably detailed.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Like when I had the vision of the hands, at that point, I wasn't thinking like, oh man, like hands are like the hardest part of the body to paint and draw. They're so difficult. And so
They're the hardest.
they're so hard to paint. So I had like such a large learning curve to master painting hands to the level that I was comfortable with. So yeah, we didn't even talk about that yet. Here's an example of the hands here this was my study I did like just to get going before I started doing a large scale. This is the teapot. I'm showing you the back of it because you can see my drawing in white pencil. So I draw it in the white pencil first, using a photo reference usually. And then I cut it, when I cut it out and it's all done, it's just in black paper like this. This one's kind of open.
What are your plans for these cutouts?
They'll probably just sit in my drawer for archived. They're archived.
Okay.
Unless someone wants to give me a lot of money for them.
Or maybe you could do some sort of exhibition.
Yeah, I have exhibited them. I've framed them. I've used them in printmaking. I've used them in paintings. I've made them, actually one thing that I do with my paper cuts is I'll translate them into steel. So some of my public artworks are steel cutouts that are translated from paper cuts. I'm always trying to.
Very familiar with this.
I'm always just playing around. Like none of my public artworks look like each other because I'm always switching mediums and just having fun,
Sonia, I have a question. It's two different people, I think, but I think it's leading up to the same question. How many sheets does a single design take up? And the other is the original paper. What's the size of the paper you work on? They put 8.5 by 11 or larger, but I'm assuming larger. Yeah.
They're larger than 8.5 by 11. The sheet of paper that I purchase is like 22 inches
by 30
wide.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. 22 by 30.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't necessarily use the whole sheet, but
I have a question actually. How are you able to, let me put the video. How are you able to, not being an artist, able to translate your stencil onto a much larger scale?
Oh yeah. Well, there's a lot of techniques you could use to do that, but what we did, and I had assistants that worked on this mural. I did want to mention that. Had a few different assistants over the course of the year I painted it, but the main one was Juan Mendez, and he would, I had the whole mural on the computer first to scale, and then I had it printed out on basically like Xerox paper, like really large rolls. So I had the whole thing printed out, not the actual like hands, but like the paper cuts. So that, because like I wanted to exactly replicate the paper cuts onto the mural, like to scale. So basically we traced them onto the panels. And that took a lot of prep work. I didn't really have anyone help me paint the mural, but I did have people help me prep the panels before I started painting.
How did you digitize the cutouts?
I scanned them into the computer. There's a lot of process. I'm a very process-oriented artist. it's time consuming.
Yeah. So now seeing the whole thing installed, how do you feel about it? Because to me, it's, you know, it's a really large undertaking, and knowing the work that, you know, being very familiar with your other projects, this seems to have a much bigger scale, and also just the location of it and the importance of the location. How do you feel about it now that it's done?
You know, it's really hard to gauge, or it's a little bit hard to celebrate right now.
Yeah.
Middle of this pandemic, and I can't go show it to people in person. And you know, I hope, you know, if anybody is willing to comment to me personally, like I'd be happy to, you know, hear your reactions, just so I can get a little bit of the public part of this public art. But I definitely am so proud to have won this commission. So honored to be, you know, having such a large piece in such a prominent location in East Los Angeles, and you know, where my dad was raised and my grandparents lived. And you know, I hope you like it, and I hope you feel connected to it, because I try to make connections, like even, you know, however short, with like all the people I photographed. And you know, hopefully that shows. Hopefully I got it right.
Have any of the people that you used as models, have they seen it completed? Have you gotten any feedback from anybody that's involved in it?
Yeah, I just started sending pictures to people yesterday, because you know, like people are inside, they're not going out and seeing it right now. But I did get some good, really nice reactions.
So that again, like I'm familiar with some of the people that you've mentioned that were, you know, models for this, and you did sort of get a really good grouping of people that are very active in the community, also in art and culture from the community, which, you know, being part of self-help graphics, you become aware of this really rich, you know, community of art and culture, and, you know, just the people that are from Boyle Heights. And how did you come about you know, picking the group of people that you worked with? Because for me, it was like, it's impressive, because it really does cover like all the different areas and people
Well, yeah, I do want to.
that make up the community.
This was a completely open call. I put out open calls on, you know, social media. I just went around and asked like all sorts of random people. And then I also like asked a lot of cultural leaders to connect me with people, so that I could get like that range of people that I needed to illustrate the community. So this is just the group that I ended up with. Actually, there were 200, 300 objects that I photographed and models. There were a lot that I had a lot to choose from. But I had to, after I did all that research and I took all those photos, I then had to pick, you know, this group of objects to create the mural.
Challenging to within public art to have to do this type of community engagement where you're having all these outside influences that will actually influence the work itself.
Yeah, so public art is like part me and then part community. So the cool thing is, if I was just painting my work, if I was just painting the work without any input, it would just be like Sonia. But what I do is like, I listen and I try to absorb as much input I can, and that broadens my worldview so that I'm able to create artwork that is larger than my own imagination and larger than my own knowledge. So that's what's cool about public art. It's part me, part you.
Yeah, that's a talent to be able to take these other influences and incorporate them. I know a lot of us don't like to have their vision, you know, affected by anything or anyone. The public engagement part of public art very difficult, but you seem to have gotten very good at it over the years. And I think that's like one of the more.
Is I never meant to be a public artist. That was never in my plan. But I am now working on my 10th large scale commission in Los Angeles County. And, you know, I really think it's because I meant to like put a lot of my time into making my own work, but maybe I just haven't done that. That's not what my life that's not what happened to my life. Maybe this is a better path for me. Maybe this is where I'm supposed to be, you know.
And then also this type of work is very physically demanding, you know, doing works that are in such a, so do you see yourself moving forward doing more public artworks?
Yeah, like I just started doing public artworks. You know, I'm ready to do like some bigger commissions. You know, there's more out there that I haven't tackled yet. And I really, you know, you'll see in the future I'll be doing some sculptural work as well as paint, as well as murals, as well as tile murals, as well as steel work. I want to do sculptures. And I, you know, so far in my career, I've only done work in Los Angeles, but, you know, there's a whole country out there. There's a whole world out there.
And so it's also tying back to self-help graphics. You do have this, you know, long background of printmaking, and printmaking seems to be your primary medium. And
I studied printmaking.
It's difficult to imagine, you know, working on paper and turning it in. Go ahead.
I always thought I was going to be a painter, but then when I got to RISD in my college, I just decided randomly to go into printmaking because I wanted to be like alternative or something. And I just wanted to be like, I wanted to study something different. So I went into printmaking and I got a degree in that. And then I think I've always just been trying to merge painting and printmaking and anything for like the rest of my career. Like, but printmaking is at the base of everything I do. I also did my first print edition at Self-Help Graphics, you know, when I was early 20s. So, and I've done several print editions there throughout my life, and I've worked there a lot over my career. And I grew up going there as a child as well.
Has become, right, it's become this sort of, you know, home base for all of these artists, and it seems to be pulling, you know, people from different generations and from different backgrounds all into this one place and producing, you know, all these print works. And there's also a large history of the muralists that come through self-help graphics that end up doing public art, you know, particularly with Metro. And so did you ever feel like you're part of this tradition, but also have this sort of responsibility to it? Or do you feel like you're operating sort of in your own?
Well, I do feel like, you know, that you can call, if you want to call it the self-help graphics community, did somewhat raise or influence me throughout my whole life. Actually was working at self-help in 2002 or 3 with Artemio Rodriguez, and I saw him win a Metro poster that year. And that was what inspired me to apply to a Metro poster contest the next year, which I won, or maybe it was a few years later. And then from there, I won my MacArthur Park Metro station. So it did start at Self-Help Graphics.
All roads lead to self-help graphics. I've always said someone should put together an exhibition of all the artists from the self-help graphics community that has done Metro projects, because there's a long list of them.
So for the last 15 minutes, I'm encouraged if there are any other questions from the audience, please post them on the YouTube live chat. And um, I'd like to ask Sonia, for individuals who are curious about public artwork, what are your advice and suggestions towards that path, and also talk about those challenges, especially the importance, like Wayne had mentioned, the importance of community engagement. And so, any suggestions to people who are artists who are interested or curious?
Yeah, definitely. I there's different ways to approach, making art in the public. One would be something that I call a parachute artist, which is an artist that just like comes down to a city. They might not be from there at all, puts up something and then leaves.
Yeah,
that's one approach. Or, a different way to approach a public artwork is to figure out a way to do community engagement, interact with the location, the vibe, the politics, the history of a location, to any degree, and then merge that with your own ideas, your own passions, your own aesthetic, and then create an artwork. So I fall into the second camp of artist. I do see that there's also value in the first camp, but you also have to think of a way to do community engagement that's like authentic to yourself. So, you can't just like do one artist approach and think that it's going to work for you, because how can you like personally connect with total strangers? Like I actually am very like shy person, and I would never ever talk to strangers on purpose. But if I have like without a purpose. But the cool thing about public art is it have a purpose, and I have a reason to connect with strangers. And so for someone who's like very sheltered and shy and doesn't really talk to people, it brings me out of my shell. So that's cool. Yeah, so also, you need to have a strong portfolio to just get started. So strengthen your portfolio if you're just getting started. Have a strong 10 images of your work if you want to start applying for things. And then think about community engagement. And then there you go. You could always ask me questions. I'm not so famous that I don't have time for questions. So.
Well, let me just tell you, you're getting a lot of accolades on YouTube, and the people are really excited to go see the work. And let's see. Okay, there's a question. You mentioned creating sculptures in the near future. What type of sculptures do you have in mind, and what medium which you use?
Well, I have a few ideas, but like totally like, how do you translate a really flat medium of print and graphic paper cut into a sculpture? Like that's not easy. That's not easy.
Well, I think one would say the same thing about the mural.
Right? How do you translate? And I can paint, like, by the way, like I can paint like painterly. Like I know how to do that, but I chose to do something a little more challenging. It's so challenging to take something that's like really flat in 2D and make it into other things. One idea I have for sculpture, well, I want to see if I could pull that sculpture down and show it to you right now, but maybe not.
We did work on a project that had your paper cuts done in laser cut steel and had some dimension to that, as well as thousands of small tiles. That you did something that not a lot of people do, is we worked together to silk screen images onto ceramic tile. And so that those two aspects were very innovative for that type of taking two-dimensional work and giving it dimension and doing something that hadn't really been done.
And that's Self-Help Graphics, your Day of the Dead print,
Yes.
with the laser cut butterfly.
Oh yeah, I should show that.
Mhm.
I have that. Yeah, I have done some experimental sculptures with paper. Like, you can just take the butterfly, which is flat, and then, just move it like this, and then,
Mhm.
suddenly you have a little bit of dimension. So that was like kind of where it started. I have a lot of monarch butterfly sculptures that I have already created in the fine art realm, not in the public realm. Yeah, I was kind of imagining, taking them from paper though into like a more permanent material, like metal, for instance.
And I have a question for both of you about the logistics of, you shared the logistics of putting the panels into your studio. So if you can talk about the logistics of placing these massive panels into the station.
Yeah, that was actually a really difficult job to hang the, 100 pounds of metal into the air. Luckily, I didn't have to be involved in that at all. I don't know if
For you?
Wayne.
Was that something you were involved with, Wayne?
Yeah, it was a pretty yes, it was sort of this orchestra. It was like a bit of a ballet. A lot of people were involved, and we did have a crew that brought them from her studio down into the station, and then one by one, not only had to bring them up to install them, but had to make sure everything lined up and that it fit up perfectly, which it ended up doing. They were very thorough and took the time. And then we also had, the Metro Art team that was all behind the scenes making all this happen. I didn't really do a whole lot myself personally. I got to observe the whole thing, but it was quite an undertaking, and the results are pretty spectacular because of it. But just bringing those panels down the stairs along the escalators, there was no other way. They didn't fit in the elevator. They had to be hand carried by
Oh, wow.
like 6 people down
Yeah, I don't envy that.
down into the station one at
Wow.
a time.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit nerve-wracking for a moment, but then could hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many people actually went into this artwork. From my project manager, Jennifer Liu, to, a lot of, different construction crews, several different crews of people, to all the, people who volunteered to model, to,
Yeah.
to everybody, a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly a community project.
So I'd like to, for both of you actually, if you can share your social media handles so that they can see both of your works. I see some of your works behind you, Wayne, but obviously you've seen like all of your works as well, Sonia, so they can see examples of both your work that you do in your studio, Sonia's work, as you said, as well as the public work, so public and community work out in other art in public spaces. I'm sorry. So Sonia, maybe you want to share your Instagram?
Yeah, my Instagram is Sonia Amalia Romero. But you could also find me on Instagram through my website, which is just soniaromero.net. That's the easiest way to get started. Is just Google my name and that'll all pop up. And Instagram is the social media that I use the most. And I will be posting more tomorrow and this week about this particular project and my next project, which is in El Sereno.
Okay. And Wayne? Now he's getting frozen again.
Mine is Wayne Perry Art for. Am I?
Yes.
It's
go
Wayne
ahead,
Perry
go
Art
ahead.
for Instagram, and I am open to questions, and so people, I try to be as accessible as possible. So if you have questions about public, I worked as a public art fabricator for over 25 years and worked with a lot of different artists, and also doing work with self-help graphics. So if you have any questions about anything, even if it seems like a silly question, I'm always happy to answer, and I will try to get back to everybody. Yeah.
So I want to thank you both so much for opening your studio Sonia, and sharing, both of you sharing this long process, and more especially for you, Sonia. I mean, it's been a year and a half, you said, for this all to finally come together, unfortunately, under these circumstances. And I would like to encourage people to go and see the mural in a safe manner. Wearing your mask and social distance. And finally, I want to tell you that the video will be recorded on SHGTV through YouTube. And so it'll live here if you want to see it again or share it with friends, families. And so you can share the beautiful work that Sonia has done. I want to wish everyone a good, restful, safe, and healthy holidays, and wishing that we have a better year or years to come, and that I get to see both of you in person at Self Help Graphics again. Until next month, we will be opening an online exhibition called Intersections this coming Saturday, and our next group of artists for the Artist Lab will be Jonah Elijah, Alvaro Marquez, and William Camargo. Thank you again, and have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.